In my introduction to the great books of the Western world, I received a comment about why I might be making a mistake. I didn't agree with all of it, though there were two recommendations that caught my eye. A book called Dumbing Us Down and an essay called The Lost Tools of Learning. So, is school making us dumb? That's the question proposed by John Taylor Gatto's book, Dumbing Us Down, and I mostly agree. The text claims that this is a coercive conspiracy to control the poor. These claims come unsupported, and they're probably included to give the essays and speeches in this collection an incendiary nature. It's these claims where the work is at its weakest. School, it is argued, no longer serves any useful purpose, and nor could it ever have done. School is an unnatural society, devoid of the elderly and segregated by age. Work begins and ends with the ring of a bell, resembling prison more than useful study. It fails to teach students to be independent. Students need to be told what to do and what to think. As adults, they have that same dependency drifting through life. We see this disengagement everywhere. The essay, The Lost Tools of Learning, actually puts this well. It compares people's non-participatory nature in life to a sort of cosmic fatalism, that everything can be no other way. A natural conclusion when your education consists of rote memorization of facts about the way things are, rather than discussing the way things could be. Gatto proposes an education that is independent, exploratory, and specific, one that does away with central curriculum and harmful testing. But how are you to implement such an ideal in our school systems? Is it not deeply impractical? I couldn't imagine such a system because I was trying to imagine it within the system that already exists. But Gatto claims that no amount of reform or funding could fix a system that is inherently broken. School must return to a local free market with community and family at its core. Gatto appears to be a big supporter of the homeschool movement. The centralised education system thrusts children into an unnecessary global competition where continuous upskilling means there is no end to the expansion of what they must learn. And Gatto asks why. This echoes the work of Wendell Berry, of which Gatto was familiar. They place the question of progress back in the individual, their family, and the local community, and not in the endless profitization and exploitation of our natural resources. It's impossible to have a discussion about how we should educate without also asking ourselves the question of how we should live. A return to local level democracy, business and education requires free thinking and critical citizens. Citizens who are engaged in their lives with the tools to decide what is best for themselves. With a proper education of this kind, any career or discipline is within reach. They no longer need to be subjugated to the appeals to the anonymous expert. Schooling falls quite short of this ideal. Its aim is primarily to replace the parent with the state, to depersonalise and dehumanise education. Gatto raises an interesting point here, that now both parents in the family work, it's only natural that the cost of having a family should have expanded to 2 wages. School asks us to turn our children over to an institution which, like all bureaucracies, acts first in its own self-interest. He takes care not to blame teachers for the insufficient but ever-expanding curriculum that they are forced to teach. It is the ulterior motive of a broken system that must keep growing if it is to survive. At the root is the decay of the community and the family. Television and social media has swept our homes. Conversation has been replaced with scrolling, family dinners with movie night, neighbours with strangers. Cities are filled with lives in transition, alone, disconnected and unsupported. What was once a community has been replaced by a network. And this is the most philosophical but also the most interesting part of the work. Efficiency is a goal that drains activity of its meaning. The scale of cities and schools exceeds that which enables human flourishing. Flourishing is not systematic, rational or scientific. It requires connection, love, community. And it asks, can we continue to call our modern world progress? When do we begin to question the anxiety and depression that seems to beguile us? Do we keep churning out the white-collar professional who is kept in a childlike and government-enabled state well into their 20s? The call to return to small communities that do real work is powerful, and it's one that I contemplate seriously. The essay, The Lost Tools of Learning, offers one solution, and one that is particularly relevant to me. It calls back to the Renaissance and the medieval education systems. It consisted of the trivium and the quadrivium. The trivium, the first stage, was the study of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The quadrivium was arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. It's the trivium that is the focus of this essay. In short, it's a sequence of stages that are designed to hone the mind. It starts with grammar, the what, the where, the who. Grammar is used here in two senses, both the grammar literally of language, but also the grammar of subjects. It claims that a student should master a language, preferably Latin. This is something that Admiral James Stockdale, a favourite author of mine, has often spoken about. He also claims that the learning of Latin hones the intellect, that there is worth in a difficult task because of the fact that it's difficult. It's the study of grammar that gives students the content for the next stage of their education, which is the study of logic. Most importantly, the study of Aristotle's organon. Logic gives students the ability to decipher truth, to determine poor arguments and spot logical fallacies. It's the study of classical logic that makes students effective readers. This work culminates in the study of rhetoric, where students are taught to write and to argue well. Now, I'd heard of these concepts in passing before, but this essay has placed them firmly back in focus for me. My ongoing project of reading the great books of the Western world requires me to be able to analyse them. I, as you can imagine, have had a conventional schooling experience, and I have no real training in the skills of the trivium. And I've not been able to find a comprehensive modern reading list for self-study of these skills. And so obviously that's something that interests me, and you can expect to hear more about this in the future. I want to thank the person that left this comment. Your viewpoint has been illuminating, and even if I didn't agree with everything you had to say, you certainly gave me a lot to think about. I'll link to both of the works that we've discussed today in the description below. And I'm just at the start of a journey of discovering alternative ways to educate oneself, how to go about self-improvement in a deliberate and mindful way, and how to train myself in more rigorous thought. And if you know something about these topics, logic, grammar, rhetoric, classics, then please do share your suggestions in the comments. I want to thank you for listening. My name is Harry Smith, and this is Pages to Practice.